Analytics. This is usually the first barrier we come across whenever we consider conversion optimization. The reason for that is because we think analytics is some guys in a basement looking at screens full of data and full of information, divining insights from it, like looking at the falling characters on the screens in the Matrix, using complex algorithms and modeling to pull the intelligence out of this mass of data. Seems like something only a PhD could do or a trained data scientist. But we're going to use analytics very differently. We're going to use analytics when we're optimizing to answer specific questions. We just want to go in and find evidence for specific hypotheses that we have on our list. And in that sense, we really only have to know the basics of analytics, and then we'll learn each report or each way of slicing the data as questions come up. So all we really need to do today in session 3 is become friends with analytics. We're going to look at a few of the top level things that you need to know, and we're going to answer one really important question about your business using analytics. So the first thing you're going to need to do is get a login to your analytics database. Get it from IT, look it up in your password library, try a bunch of things until you figure out what it is. But we're going to dive into it. We're going to answer some very basic questions about your business, but very helpful questions about your business. Before we begin, we want to get really clear about what a conversion is, and specifically what a conversion is on our website. Now, not everything can be measured in a timely manner on our website. For instance, if you're in a business that has a 12-month sales cycle, you can't really think of a sale, a closed sale, as a conversion, because it's almost impossible to measure from the website the effectiveness of what you're doing when there's this 12-month lag. So think about what would be a good alternative. Number of leads generated by the website, that is something that can be measured in the moment and should have a direct bearing on sales. Now, we are going to be very cognizant of the fact that we can increase leads on a website, but we could bring in a whole lot of really crappy leads, and that won't actually increase sales or revenue. So ultimately, we are going to want to understand how to measure the value of the leads that we're creating, and that's one of the things that we're going to do. If you are selling subscriptions, new subscribers would be a great conversion metric. If you're worried about retention, then renewals would be a good conversion metric. If you're optimizing for phone calls, then tracking the number of calls that come from the website, specifically from a number that is unique to the website, is a great conversion to track. And we do lots of optimization for phone calls. It's a fertile field in the world of mobile phones. Is it a sale? If you're an e-commerce company selling things online, then it's very easy to track what you're doing to a sale on the web. If your analytics are set up properly, you should have no problem figuring out whether you're getting sales or not from different experiences as you optimize the website. So get really clear about what a conversion is, what you're going to be measuring as you optimize your website. I want to address an issue that is very important for us to get our heads around because we're going to bump up against it over and over again. And that is that analytics is not an accurate measurement, but it can be and should be precise. So what's the difference? Well, let's take an e-commerce company. If we were to look at sales reported, let's say every day by analytics, and we compared that to the back end, the orders actually processed every day, we would see a discrepancy. There might be a difference of 5% or 10% or even 20%. This is accountable to issues with browsers, people who come in with their JavaScript turned off so that the tags aren't firing, slow connections, returns on the back end that change the numbers. all of this is going to create some variability, some difference between analytics and reality. We don't want to worry about that unless it's huge. If there's 100% difference in between the two, if analytics is only reporting half of the sales, or if it's reporting more sales than the back end by double, then we have a problem. Now, what we want to do is make sure that analytics is precise. And what we mean by that is that it is tracking reality about the same, that it is correlating, even though there might be a difference in the actual numbers. When in reality transactions increase, analytics increases about the same amount. This is precision, because when optimizing, we're really interested in tracking the changes that are made, but we want some level of accuracy. So precision, that it follows reality; accuracy, that it is somewhat in the ballpark of reality. Does that make sense? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our analytics data in total, and we're going to understand what time frames we should be looking at information on. Now, most of the reports that we'll use in analytics are called time series. It means that we're looking at a metric as it changes over time. The x-axis is days, weeks, months. And the y-axis is whatever our metric is. We might be looking at page views, we might be looking at sessions, we might be looking at conversion rate, we might be looking at revenue, we might be looking at leads generated, all over time. And so it's important that we select the right period of time to look at things. Google Analytics right now defaults to a 7-day period. They have default settings where you can choose 30 days. And we can use those, but our businesses might tell us to use something different. So let's open analytics and pull up the most basic report, the sessions report, the number of sessions over time. Whatever your analytics package defaults to, 30 days, 7 days, you should see a time graph that shows you how many sessions were visited to your site each day of that period. And what we're looking for here is the ebb and flow of our businesses. So almost all of us will have a calendar variation within the week. We will see either a whole lot more or a whole lot less visits on the weekends than during the week, especially in a business-to-business sale. For some of us, we may be doing a lot of advertising on the weekends, and so we'll have more traffic on the weekends. Whatever the case, we always want to make sure that we look at data that includes an entire week, because there's different behaviors during the week than at the end of the week, and we want to make sure that the analysis we're doing takes that into account. Some of you will have monthly cycles. So if you are selling business to business, you might find that there's a big surge of sales at the end of every month, and then it's a little bit low at the beginning of the month. In this case, we want to make sure that we are taking that entire month into account. We can do the entire month, 2 months, or 3 months if we want to measure an entire quarter, because some of us actually have surges at the end of quarters as well. Whatever your business drives, whatever the characteristics of your business are, that's the period of time that we want to traditionally look at whenever we do one of these time series graphs. Most of us will have seasonality. We'll find that during certain seasons, such as the holidays, if we're selling to businesses, we might see a slowdown in visits during that time. If we're an e-commerce company selling to consumers, we should see a huge surge during the holiday season. So we want to make sure we understand when those happen. The length of your sales cycle might be the right period to look at. If you have a 3-month to 6-month sales cycle, if people are coming and doing research early on, but then coming and buying on your site 3 to 6 months later, that might be the time frame that you'll want to use whenever you're evaluating data. Finally, we're going to want to understand where there are gaps. Analytics is not perfect, as we've said, and sometimes it gets broken and the data that we see is not valid. We want to make sure that we demark those times and that we don't do any analysis over the times when data wasn't good. Let's start off by setting our dates for an entire year. Go ahead and set them for 12 months back to today's date, and let's take a look at the sessions trends over that time frame. Here's a couple examples of seasonality. So seasonality can come from natural sales cycles, like the holidays in this case. Seasonality also can be caused by the pace of your promotions. So if during the Valentine's Day season, you're offering specials on your products because you sell flowers or gifts or chocolates, then that would be a part of your seasonality, those special promotional periods. If you sell swimsuits, you're going to find seasonality, more purchases in the late spring and summer than you will in the winter rather. Understand your trends. The reason this is important is because if we have a steady growth in traffic, let's say that we've spent a year building out our search engine optimization campaigns and we're getting good traffic for the words we want. The steady growth in that can belie what's really happening. So if we were to compare last year to this year, metrics like conversion rate, because there was less traffic last year as we had just started working on our SEO, conversion rates might be artificially high compared to this year where we have a lot more traffic, but maybe a lot more less qualified traffic or more traffic that's not buying. So doing a year over year when there's this trend could give us bad inferences. We might panic and say, oh my gosh, our conversion rate is going down as our traffic grows. The truth of the matter is that you have much more traffic than you did last year, but in fact, your transactions and sales are growing and going the direction that you want. When looking at a year of data, we want to look for gaps. We want to look for unexpected drops, things that probably aren't seasonality, probably aren't business cycle issues, but are errors in analytics, where the analytics got dropped for a period of time when a new version of the website was released, or something broke, an account got canceled. All sorts of things can happen. We want to make sure that we can isolate these dates and make sure that we're not collecting data over these dates, because it will baffle us if we're not careful. Use the annotation feature of Google Analytics or the calendar feature, the calendar event feature in Adobe Analytics to mark these dates and make sure that your analysis doesn't include them. Now let's do a year-over-year comparison. For those of you that have 2 years of data, in Google Analytics, you can very easily select year over year as you can in Adobe Analytics, formerly called Omniture. And let's see what we see here. Do we see, number one, the same sort of trends? In the example I'm showing you right here, you can see that there was an increase in sales last year over the holidays, which is to the rightmost edge of the graph. But it wasn't so demarked last year as this year. This year there was a significant increase. Was this a fluke, or is this true seasonality? Did we do something right this year, something wrong last year? Did we do something wrong this year and invite a bunch of the wrong people, because this is a page views report? These are all good questions to ask, but we can't ask them until we understand the general trends. We do notice that at the beginning of the year in this example, things were on a high and then slowly declined through the summer, coming back through the fall. This looks to me, because it happened in both years about the same magnitude, this looks to me like a market seasonality issue. You need to understand where your seasonality is. You may already know, but you'll have it in numbers in analytics. So here's a little form. It's in your workbook. You may want to fill it out just so that you have it. My data goes back to what date? How far back can you look in analytics? Sometimes this is excellent. If we can do 3 years of year-over-year measurements, or 4 years, we can get more evidence that there are specific trends in our business, maybe even see how those trends are changing. For instance, you might want to go back and look at your mobile data and see how that has grown over the past 4 years, if you have that much data. And then go ahead and make a note of your business cycles. Weekend cycle, monthly cycles, seasonal cycles, the promotional effects. Do you offer weekly, monthly email promotions, anything like that? And then changes or errors in the analytics. This will be in your workbook, and you can always refer to it whenever you're doing your analysis. See, that's not so scary. Welcome to analytics. We don't have to be idiot savants to figure out what's going on here. We just have to have some good questions to ask.